Welcome to the Revere Art Community on the RAC podcast, a bi-monthly series brought to you by the Revere Art Community at Las Parentas and Chocolate Cafe, where we sit and talk with artists from the Revere community about how they do what they do and sometimes why they do it, with a little bit of focus on making sure that they're able to market and make a little bit of income from this. So welcome to On the RAC. We welcome artists of all backgrounds, ages, abilities, and experience levels. Every story matters. Every voice deserves to be heard. We create a safe, respectful space for authentic, artistic expression. We honor the rich tapestry of culture that we call Revere, our home, and we recognize that art is a powerful bridge between communities. Again, welcome to On the Rack. Hello, and welcome to the day after Snow Armageddon in the Boston Revere area. And we'd like to welcome a special guest with us today. She works on the peripheral of the arts and culture side, but has a big impact in a lot of other things that go on. I'd like to introduce Laura Christopher.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Deanna. How are you guys?
You making it through a snow day with all the kids?
Yeah. We might have a little appearance or some background noise, but everyone's doing good. Thank goodness. Thanks.
That's all well and good. So, Laura, mention a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you interact with the city of Revere.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, first of all.
You're welcome.
I definitely feel affinity, sorry, with the arts community. My background is in landscape architecture and design. So that's sort of how I approached a field that I now know is called community development. And that's kind of the field of work that we met in, Brian. And what's meant by that usually is enhancing the livability, the economic outlook, the connectivity of communities. So something the arts are very present in, as is economic development. And that's a bit of the vein of the work that I came in on. I am the TDI Fellow for MassDevelopment, which means I'm in a neighborhood-focused program called Transformative Development Initiative. Brings a set of resources to communities like Shirley Ave. And one of the resources is someone full-time to help advance neighborhood goals. I think here in Shirley Ave, one of the goals was definitely to make arts and culture visible, accessible, set the ground plane so that more of this could be done with less friction and that momentum can build. Mm-hmm. And part and parcel of that has been our work together organizing the Shirley Ave Neighborhood Association. So that's a little bit of the vein of my focus right now is enhancing that neighborhood group, which, as you know, can be a partner or a platform or a supporter of arts and culture in the area.
All right, let's the folks out there explain or demonstrate some of the things that through the Shirley Ave Neighborhood Association, which came from the TDI initiative, and that only began 5 years ago?
Yeah, even less. That's good if it feels like we've been here that long. So the TDI initiative started in September of 2022. So we're now in what they call an extension year. So in the fourth year of working in Shirley Ave, it's usually a 3-year program, but partly because of the progress we showed, we got an extra year of working as a neighborhood partnership and with these resources. And I think that a lot of the momentum that when we talk about what happened in year 1 or year 2, it might have happened under the banner, so to speak, of TDI or of partners that work together. That's really what TDI is it's the city, it's local nonprofits, emerging nonprofits like RAC and SANA working together. A lot of that work might have had a banner of TDI, and now it's got that banner of SANA. That's what's going to bring the sustainability forward.
And the best part, and how I was introduced to you in your world with TDI, was its inclusiveness and openness to be able to work with individuals in the community. So if you could think back, let's go through some of the projects that we've done. First is TDI, and then TDI transforming and helping develop the Shirley Ave Neighborhood Association, and its partnership with the Revere Art Community and actually the city of Revere on some of the projects. So I'm going to let you lead that if we go all the way back to 2023. And I will preface that in 2020, I started the Revere Art Community and worked for 2 years towards developing and doing things. And then I met you.
Yes. And I think the way we met, or one of the prompts for meeting, is a great explanation, I would say, of the model that we're looking to keep going in Shirley Ave, and that I think all partners are, which is noticing, being responsive, being tailored in assistance to really community members on the ground and needs on the ground. So we met when a grant program called Shared Spaces was live. So TDI and MassDevelopment often will give block grants to participating neighborhoods. So it's a chunk of money that then locally there needs to be rules about how to spend it. And here in Shirley Ave, no surprise to anybody, but operating costs month to month for businesses, even existing brick and mortar businesses, even folks on leases, was high. Never mind rent, which is its own entity, but even things like utility costs we saw increasing. Of course, labor costs, material costs. We were dealing with the effects of COVID. Then, just moving right into small business effects that I think maybe being felt due to tariffs. So it's been a rough few years for businesses. And I think the thinking locally was, how do we help this need month to month, not just with a one-time payment that you'll back in the same boat as soon as you use up that grant. And so that paired with some noticing about some, I would say, kind of native or vernacular practices of space sharing. I think when we launched this program, there was one side of the world that might have said, that's strange. I've never seen a small business program do that. That's a new concept. And then there's another side, really the feet on the ground here, that would say, oh, that's a good word for it, but I've seen it, or maybe they would say that's a silly word for it, but I've seen that happening forever, that a hair salon sells plants, that the Elks Lodge partners with a Muslim prayer group, that church has a gift shop with flowers, that these spaces are shared. Yes. And so we launched a program that could help bring that practice into the forefront, help it be something that was kind of like condoned, that was in good communication with the city and with property owners. Because if not, this strategy that was meant to lower operating costs for existing commercial tenants and maybe be a platform for stepping in for folks that may be emerging from a home-based business or just launching, it could blow up in everyone's face. You could violate the terms of your lease. You could run afoul of what ISD or the city may expect and cause more harm than benefit. So that's where the partnership piece came in. We had a small series of grants. And then I remember, Brian, you approaching even with a request of, well, I don't know if I need to share a whole space, but that'd be great. But I want to share a wall, or I want to share a window.
I want to share windows.
Working on Art on the Ave. Mm-hmm.
Right. But I think our biggest project of most renown has to go down the other end of the strip, where we've got the dry cleaners and the press lab. Yes.
So this happened even several years. Oh, sorry. Do you want me to explain it a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I want to pull out of you. You're a font of knowledge, and what you just put on the table is a lot to unpack. That's why I worked with someone that is an expert, and I will call you that, and a personable individual to deal in all these different components to help the neighborhood, to help economic development, to help culture, to help artists. And we are the Revere Art Community, so I'm going to pull some of the arts side of it out. All right, so Juliana Gomez, correct? Is that last name?
Sure, Juliana Gomez, ADV Creative.
All righty. She took and submitted for a grant, and her project was the press-on lab. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I think foundationally something I'd want to share, which I think probably resonates with the creative community, is that one of these neighborhood goals that we were all collaborating on through the TDI partnership, SANA, I think it's part and parcel of like RAC's DNA, is this idea of neighborhood stabilization. So we're in a hot market in the Boston area. There's no denying that. And there's, but how do you help people who are here grow, stay, thrive? And so I think it's noteworthy that part of how Juliana came to launch that pop-up within the Revere Dry Cleaners in coordination with Zulma, the owner there, was because effectively that business, ADV Creative, was displaced from their physical environment in East Boston. And that's something that I think it's a regional challenge, rising commercial rent. And so we're having to get creative, and nobody's better at that than the creative sector. So ADV Creative was a print shop, but also I think a partner to creatives in imagining different forms of their artwork, and they had a great network. And initially, she had reached out through again a network, because as I'm sure the RAC membership is finding, communities and networks don't really know municipal boundaries as such, right? Especially in this kind of housing environment where you may live in Revere one year, Malden the next, East Boston. So communities, are connected. And so she had friends in the area that had told her about some of the assistance or some of the momentum, and she'd seen it herself at various events and partnerships. So she reached out even just looking for a space for the printer, so just equipment, because the cost of moving really heavy equipment into storage and back, you got to rent stuff, never mind the storage. So is there just space? And this is what we hear as a need for a lot of entrepreneurs in the creative realm or not. And we had prior to this, so this was maybe a year or so ago, in the more recent realm of things, but way at the start, like when you and I met around Art on the Ave and that initial launch of this shared space initiative, we had talked to Zuma. She had had a concept design done for how a shared sort of or a retail component could be up front, because she's always sold some basically thrifted items. So there's always been that extra component, but there was never the right match. And I think this is something entrepreneurs, folks from every background, artists, when someone might just say, why don't you guys work together? Is there's partnerships that can work on paper, but then so much of this work is personal. You're sharing your living room, you're sharing your trust, what is effectively your living room, your workspace, your everything, your trust, your reputation when you share space. And so I think this is also part of the ethos of how we've worked together on the Ave is reveal opportunities, or try to make matches and connections that could make sense, but you don't push it, because that doesn't wind up well when what you're pushing is someone's livelihood, reputation, and something that could grow bigger. You don't want to stunt that. So you want to let those relationships lead the way. And so we knew Zuma had an open mind, the owner of the dry cleaners, but that she hadn't found the match. So we just thought, well, let's introduce. They wound up getting along well, and I think sharing a lot of vision, and obviously the compatibility of this idea of the print shop. That is what it grew into from Juliana's conception. Okay, more than a place to store the printer, how do we have this be a flagship space where we can provide an ability for consumers to customize garments, whether they're thrifted, bought off of blanks on site, or kind of bought pre-made on site, to add here I'm gonna butcher the technique, but essentially add printed versions of the designs, or even pins crafted by and informed by local artists. This hits so many things on the head, because they can maybe help bring more feet into a long established business, but one that's in a field that's changing. Remote work has probably changed the dry cleaning industry. Insurance regulations have changed the dry cleaning industry. It can offer a place to grow for ADV.
Office, all those things.
Yeah,
The
all
best
those things
was
change
that
it.
besides pushing on her own business, she reached out to the artistic community
Yes.
in Revere and worked with a couple of artists and produced image. I have done this stuff before. All right,
Yes.
and shown that. And it's helped. Some have been sold. It's worked. And that is definitely a tent post in the Shirley Ave production of what TDI and Santa have tried to do, but also with the Revere Art Community. Santa has, and Diane at Chocolafe, we've done events in the square here. We've had musicians, we've had DJs, we've had cultural events. We had Josue up on the end of the Ave do an event. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So, so it's all about, I think, making arts and culture visible, making it apparent what a great place this can be, and how you can be a part of that and have your mark shown, and tap into this network. And I think the Press Lab is one way. That was a pilot of, I guess, something a lot of economic development professionals might call experiential retail, something that studies are calling out for. Another thing, as ways to make local economies strong and increase quality of places for people to live and work. And another sort of category of improvements that can help along those same goals too is what's termed often activation. This just means having things happen in the street or visible from the street, or like when Valsos has their windows open, those doors open, that's a form of activation. And we see that in a lot of the improvements businesses are making is becoming part of that street life. But I think really an on the nose example is, like you said, the Shirley Ave Ciclovia. And I think this project helps get to the point you were making too, I think, about individuals being able to access grants and resources. So just to pause on that a little bit in how I introduced the project, depends on the community, right? The ecosystem, I guess we would say, of nonprofits and organizations and entities changes. And even year to year in the same community, it changes. We see this all the time. There could be a great community group, but it's really spearheaded by a couple people. Their capacity pulls back for one reason or another. They need to work more. They have a sick family member. And all of a sudden that resource can be lost. So it's a constant to build up these strong groups who can help access and bring resources in. That all is its own probably podcast convening we can do, Brian, on the topic of capital absorption. This idea that you could be circling Shirley Ave or any community with a helicopter and kind of duffel bags of cash for an intended purpose, but there's nowhere to drop it. There's nowhere to help distribute it. And that's dramatic. And it's certainly not completely the case in Shirley Ave, but it's a spectrum of how well a community can absorb resources. And we want to help on it. Yeah.
What do you think are the landing zones for those packets of cash, support, interest to be in this area or through the community that could affect it?
Yeah. So I think that you want to have a range. And this is my opinion, is to help you and always diversify risk, right? So I think having the city as a partner is huge. But I know that they'd be the first to share that there are certain resources that they're not the most efficient because of well-established, intentional, good checks and balances. But there's just a process that can mean that certain resources are best to go through the city and certain resources may be more directly distributed to communities through other means or nonprofit partners or otherwise. So I think the city is definitely a landing pad, and having good relationship with the city is key. And their role in the neighborhood work has been huge, because when other landing pads, so to speak, were busy, they were able to step in, convenient or not, as this kind of like backstop.
They were a player.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that having groups that are focused and tuned in really to specific either populations or industries is important, because they're going to have their head on a pivot, on a swivel, to identify what are the resources of need. They're going to have the trust to connect people to those resources. For example, even when we started working, an RAC was in formation stages, but not as firmly established. And I was a brand new face. It really helped, even if I had, so to speak, that helicopter, I had some TDI resources for small businesses. It helped when I was able to walk around, and it still does, with Olga Takure of Women Encouraging Empowerment, because the trust that she's established with so many community members. I mean, I could even say, I have a grant. You don't need to pay it back as long as you follow the terms. But it sounds made up. It sounds like, why are you giving that to me? It sounds like a trap. So even if you have all the knowledge and you have the quote unquote infrastructure to move money from source to need or demand, if you don't have that relationship trust, none of the machine works. So I think the neighborhood association comes in too as just another kind of landing pad, as is RAC, because the more, you never want to have overlapping duties, but when you have huge gaps, you're putting what we found is it can put a strain on existing nonprofits to step outside their very intentional mission. And they're not usually overloaded with tons of extra staff or time, by any means. So, yeah, that's important. And then individuals, though, just,
there you go.
I think it's always in formation. These groups, all of us, have ebbs and flows and busy times and and even who makes up the group, who informs it, is in motion, and the needs of a community, especially one that is changing. Like almost every city is always changing. That's the one constant, is in motion. So I think having some resources available to individuals is huge. TDI has some of their programs that you can apply for as an individual. I think other grants like the Save the Harbor, Save the Bay do as well.
Yep.
And I think what that gives is that if there is a need identified by a community member that's not yet kind of coded into a community group, or maybe there's a group that's establishing, maybe it can take a long time, right? We've been working on Sana a year and a half. It can take a long time for a group to decide, do we ever need to be a formal group? Are we just trying to do this? Do we link up with another group? And in the meantime, you need an ability to act on that vision, to pull more people into it. So that's how that TDI Creative Catalyst grant worked, which was using bar funding. Mm-hmm. And Josue was then an organizer behind Sana as it was emerging. We were a small business working group that was growing into a neighborhood association focus as we heard more and more what the community wanted to do, and what business owners wanted to do really was beyond typical business association functions. It was really a lot about making a great place to live and be. And so if Josue hadn't been allowed to apply as an individual, we would have missed that whole cycle. And what he was able to do, though, as an individual, I would think was strengthened by Sana, being able to help provide some of that trust that had been built. And of course, it had to be done in cooperation with the city, because the project, and with their support, the project was effectively closing one block of Shirley Ave and reimagining what could happen there. It was the outcome of Bike Walk Roll Working Plan 2 that the city convened. So you sort of see this spectrum of institutional players helping to maybe study, but then community and community group can kind of help pilot or be nimble in that way.
So what do you see in the future with half a year or so left?
Yeah. So I think just as just to frame up and I guess confirm to the for folks who haven't been as in the weeds as we have with some of these programs, the MassDevelopment TDI assistance for Shirley Ave is, which includes my role, so my full-time capacity for the neighborhood, is set to expire on June 30th. And so between now and then, what I know that we're really focused on is getting the Shirley Ave Neighborhood Association to a stable point where this really can be that platform, that landing pad, that trusted partner to community members, trusted partner to the city. So I think that we're in the continue to prove it mode, right? I think that we hope to have a few more successful events. I think that we want to continue our board development. We have a retreat coming up so that we all can be on the same page and speak as a united front.
All right.
There's some specific details, but yeah.
People understand. The Shirley Ave Neighborhood Association is roughly the area around Shirley Ave, from the beach up to the south, east and west. And what that means, if you live in that neighborhood, you work in that neighborhood, and you'd like to participate in the development or the push of what we're trying to do in the neighborhood and have your voice heard, you're welcome to take and find us, dig us out. We'll have the information scrolling on the bottom. When the video comes up, it should be eventually in a little while on Revere TV, and you'll see it rolling. So if you were looking for someone, Laura, that wanted to be on a board, what would you say would be some of the attributes that they might want to bring?
Well, I think first and foremost is consistency. So if you can, to participate in a planning group or a study, or there's so many ways to participate that are valuable, even if you're not at a personal place to contribute consistently. But to be on a board or committee, I think that's something that's huge. I think another thing that's looked at is perspective, right? As a neighborhood association, for example, that as a board, I know we want to look at a balance of business owners, residents, new residents, lifelong residents, to try and you'll never get a perfect balance, but try and balance that. So those are some things you might not code as skills, but you're bringing to the table. And then I think another thing would be to think about often I find that folks' most valuable attribute of what they can offer the group, they really undervalue, because to them it's something easy. For example, someone might be very good at this kind of like active listening, hearing things and kind of summing it up and regurgitating. You might not even code that as a skill in yourself because it's just part of how you work. Or folks might be very good at introductions or meeting new people or making others feel comfortable. So all of those soft skills, I think, are huge. And then I know basically about every board that I've ever talked to is always looking to have kind of touch points, whether officially on the board or within reach, I would say, as kind of like affiliate members with folks in the legal, accounting, insurance, any of those more sort of like technical genres of work. For us, folks in the built environment work, so contractors, developers, people, real estate agents, people with that sense of neighborhood development seem key. So I would say if you want to be on a board, think about, maybe ask people around you, sometimes is the best strategy, what they think could make you good and make you a good fit or you could bring to the table. Because sometimes I think it's hard for people to recognize in themselves.
Excellent. What do you think of the concept of the Shirley Ave area district having a community culture arts center where they could meet, program out of, and do functioning of events and community-based activities?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, even how we started this call, and I don't want folks to take too much of a narrow takeaway. We've worked on such a range of topics, but to come back again to that shared space initiative, I mean, it came out of spaces at such a premium, right? Residentially speaking, but on this kind of commercial cultural side as well. And so space for a nonprofit or a community group, it would be kind of like gold, right? I think in a way, when we have summer times and outdoor times, we couldn't be any luckier with our public space than to have a beach and have even these small green spaces that we've hopefully been improving in the neighborhood. But for AV events or other gatherings or offerings, something shared would be huge.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the future is for arts, culture in Revere and in Massachusetts overall?
Well, I don't know if I'm qualified to speak on either of those, especially the second, but I will say that I had an interesting prompt to me come to mind, which made me think, it made me think deeply about the Revere arts and culture community, but I also think there probably is something more broadly applicable here, which was a prompt that I'm sure you've seen as a group leader in this field to do, to map cultural assets or arts assets. And we were just talking about, right, we would love to, right, it's super important. You have to know it. But I mean, we'd love to stick a big giant gold star and say, that's the community center, that's a venue for a performance, that's this or that. But in this kind of real estate market with this kind of community, entrepreneurial, but also, middle income in a lot of cases, it's going to be hard, right, to really build in and elbow out spaces. So what I think we see more and more of is things that are shifting uses, shifting patterns of uses, this collaboration with the public sector, with businesses, which is why it's really great for RAC and SANA to be strong partners. Temporary uses, home-based uses. So we see a lot of, as I'm sure you know, a lot of folks, home-based makers, artists. And when we think about the arts and culture field, or at least in economic development, when we do, it includes textile manufacturing. It includes menders who will upcycle clothes. It includes culinary arts and folks kind of pioneering on edges there and representing their culture in that way. And a lot of that does not, it happens in a very distributed way, or parts of a process may happen here and here and here. So I think we'll see more of that. And this, I mean, it's not convenient in a lot of ways, but the strength of it is by its nature that builds a really strong network of collaborators. And I think it also builds resiliency, because you'll have folks working together and in some, rather than like just one location that could kind of fail. There's just like sort of distributed network. So it's messy, but I think that's very human, and it's spurred by this creativity that I think we definitely see in Revere. Yeah.
It's trial by fire. And
Mm-hmm.
what occurs is the currency that they gain from that is the ability to show economic returns on their artistic and creative investments into projects that they do. And little by little, I hope Revere takes ownership of this type of work and truly recognizes the impact that art and culture and makers and creators and producers can have on a community. We can lead the way in many, many ways, but it takes buy-in from the city. It takes a buy-in from the people that live in the communities, and it takes a buy-in from the people that are creators that are doing it in other places rather than home. I want to thank you personally, TDI, and you, my relationship, what I've learned from you has been great. It truly has been. I'm so glad we still got you with the Neighborhood Association Santa for another 6 months, maybe even more. And I know we're going to be doing some things in the future with activation in different parts of Revere and, of course, the World Cup. So we're looking at all that. So any last words, Laura?
I just think if you're interested in this work, I know, Brian, you and I would just love to hear from folks. They don't need to know exactly how to plug in, if it's RAC, if it's SANA, if it's long-term, if it's not. I think if you're interested enough, that probably means you're qualified because there's different ways we can plug you in. I would say we're working through a process now as we're getting things from where they were sort of led in some ways by myself or TDI to being led by this neighborhood association. You'll see a little bit of lags. We've not been as active on our social media. That's hopefully going to change. So keep checking things out, but also you can always reach out. And I know we'll have a Valentine's event coming together soon related to SANA, Revere Arts Community, in partnership with a great neighborhood entity, the Elks Lodge, hopefully. And as you teased the World Cup, I think it's such a cultural touch point, and it's something I know we'll want to be really intentional about, working with the city, regional partners, beyond, to think through the experience of that month.
Well, Laura, all the people that listen tonight, Diana, from this cold and chilly January, we want to thank you all very much, and we look forward to seeing you again here on the RAC with the Revere Art Community. I'm Brian Harkins. Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
Welcome to the Revere Art Community on the RAC podcast, a bi-monthly series brought to you by the Revere Art Community at Las Parentas and Chocolate Cafe, where we sit and talk with artists from the Revere community about how they do what they do and sometimes why they do it, with a little bit of focus on making sure that they're able to market and make a little bit of income from this. So welcome to On the RAC. We welcome artists of all backgrounds, ages, abilities, and experience levels. Every story matters. Every voice deserves to be heard. We create a safe, respectful space for authentic, artistic expression. We honor the rich tapestry of culture that we call Revere, our home, and we recognize that art is a powerful bridge between communities. Again, welcome to On the RAC.